What's up, guys? I'm Alex Gebert with BFE Adventures, and today I want to show you how to take these big pigs through some mud. Let's do it. Alright guys, so there's a few things that you have to remember whenever you're taking these things through mud. One, when you're on mud, you got to think of some physics here. So the more mass you have, the more momentum you have moving forward. And so when we are changing directions or when we are on something off camber, always know that mass and gravity and inertia or forward movement are all going to be things that you need to take into account. So a few things to know: you don't ever want to change the speed of your wheels or your tires in relation to the rolling speed of the bike unless you're trying to slide it. So, if you're trying to slide the rear end, well, that's when you would lock up the back brake or you would, give it gas. We know that. But just know on mud, it is so much easier for that to happen. And so all of your movements, everything have to be much more dialed back. Your throttle, you want to roll on more progressively rather than aggressively. Your brakes, you want to slowly apply the brakes. You got to be careful of the front end washing out on you. A lot of these newer adventure bikes, they have ABS, which helps, but honestly, if you are on a slight off camber hill and you give a handful of front brake, no ABS can catch you. It's going down for sure. So I think what I notice with new people riding around with us in the mud is that's typically what ends up happening. They're not looking for changes in the terrain. You always want to be really cognizant of when something's going to be off camber. And something that I don't think gets enough attention is you need to pay attention even based on the time of day. Like right now, it's early morning here. I've already been out for a rip, and you got to know that the leaves are wet and damp in the morning in the woods. The mud right underneath of the leaves is just going to be that thick layer of slime. My father-in-law refers to it as smeary, and that is the danger zone for these guys, because when you try and change directions quickly or the terrain changes, that's when you'll lose a tire. So make sure you're paying attention, and if anything's off camber, you'll probably see in a couple of videos that I patch in here, you always want to pick the flat line. Unless you're, if you're going into a berm, you always want to be, perpendicular with the ground. So know that if you ever try and come up out of a rut and it's muddy, that's when people crash almost every time. Anytime they kind of fall into a rut, honestly, this opinion may differ from other people, but you might as well ride the rut out in the mud, because you're not going to get out of it. Chances are you'll just, the bike's going to keep going one way and you're going to go the other way. Also, when overcoming obstacles in the mud, you got to make sure and weight your rear tire, which we all know this, but I think what we forget oftentimes is how important it is to get weight to your rear wheel. So when in doubt, when you're coming up to an obstacle, in the past, you can just kind of lean your butt back and give it a little gas and it'll go up over it. But in the mud, you really got to compress your suspension before you get to that obstacle, which you should anyway, just for good practice measure, but just know you need to add a little extra. And then lastly, I want to explain something that I see a lot of people get nervous about, and honestly, I don't want to say this is a blanket statement, but when you're coming up to an area that looks like it's going to be muddy for a while, like it just kind of looks soupy, people tend to really slow down. And although I don't think it's good to hydroplane across it, I think the best thing you can do is just put your weight towards your rear tire just a little bit and keep it low, keep your body low over the bike and throttle on. And as long as you can keep your front end light and keep that traction going to your rear tire, you will skate right through it almost every single time. Well, it should be every single time, but things happen. But anyway, just make sure and have a little more confidence. That's the best thing I can tell you, is when you see mud, go with a little confidence. You'll probably see in these videos, there's a few valleys that I'll go through that it may not look bad on GoPro, but they're typically mud holes, and you'll notice that I'll roll in slightly slower just so I don't, bottom out my suspension, but the plan is to get on the gas as soon as you approach that mud, and that's That's how you'll gain traction and get through it. So I hope that helps. I hope you guys got something out of this. Please like and subscribe to our video. It takes 3 seconds for you, and it really helps us out. It helps us get the word out there to teach people some other things. And yeah, right on, guys. See you soon.